We're now going to focus on how the United States ended up getting Florida. And this is a pretty quick story compared to some of the ones we'll talk about later. So, 1804, so a year after the Louisiana Purchase, the United States approached Spain and they asked them to buy Florida. So, it was Spanish Florida at the time. Spain controlled Florida for a really, really long time. Anyway, we go to them, we say we want to buy Florida, or yeah, we want to buy Florida. And they said no. They say no deal on this. So the reason why, or reasons why we wanted to buy Florida, there were a couple of things. Number one, Georgia slaves, and if you look at this map, Georgia is just to the north. They were running away into Florida. And because this was a separate country, it was difficult for slave owners to go in there and try to retrieve their slaves. Also, the Seminole Indians, and look at the date here. This is 1804. This is before Indian removal and Trail of Tears. We're 25 years before that. Seminole Indians from Florida were going up into Georgia and raiding Georgia farms. When I use the word raiding, typically with raiding, we're talking about attacking, stealing things, etc. So a lot of people, especially people living in Georgia or the South, life will be a lot easier for them if the United States owned Florida. But they had said no. So fast forward about 15 years, Andrew Jackson, okay, not President Jackson yet. We're still 10, 12 years away from that. Andrew Jackson, he was in the military. He was given orders to go down in Florida to stop the raids from occurring. So those were his orders. Okay. However, he took his orders and he ran with them, if you will. He ended up going into Florida, which he wasn't supposed to do, and he began to capture Spanish military forts. He also took it a step further and he replaced the Spanish governor of Florida with an American. He was never authorized to do this. So we talked about Jackson, and sometimes he did what he thought what he thought was best and didn't care if anyone else if it was legal or not. This is Andrew Jackson before he was president. So finally, President Monroe sent a message to Spain: govern Florida or leave Florida. And what he meant by this: take care of things, stop these raids from happening, etc. So what Spain ended up doing was they gave the United States Florida, um, but we had to pay $5 million to some settlers' claims down there. So in the end, I would look at this as we bought Florida for $5 million. So the next thing you're going to have to do, add Florida to your map. The what is Florida. The when is 1819. The how we just discussed. You don't have to put that on the map. And then what you need to do now is go to your chart, and we're going to do the same thing that we did for the Louisiana Territory. You're going to have to determine if you think was the United States was justified in how they got Florida. And justified means having good or fair reasons. Two things. You're going to rank your level of justification. I'll show you the scale again in a second. Then in 2 sentences, explain why you gave this event the number you did and whether the United States was justified in how they got Florida. No right or wrong answers, just make solid arguments. And that is your rating scale. 12 is completely and totally 100% justified. 1 is totally unjustified. And then we have the numbers in the middle.